Hi, welcome to Hospitality Live with Rupesh. Each week, we feature an industry leader that will share the latest trends and the best strategies to help you grow. Now, welcome your host, Rupesh Patel.
Hey, good morning. Hey, how are you doing? This is episode, and I want to make sure we're live. We're live. So guys, comment. Somebody comment. Let me know that we are live. I don't see it pop up on my notifications like I usually do, but maybe it's my computer like it always is. Guys, welcome. This is episode number 60. 60. I can't believe we're at 60 already. This year's been like just flown by. I feel like it's pretty soon it's going to be Christmas and the holidays, and we're going to be like, what happened to this year? Guys, this is episode number 60. Road to Recovery, Chip Rogers. I'm super excited. He was on about 2 months ago, and I'm excited to speak to him again. So it's Chip Rogers, the current state of the hotel industry. And we all know where hotels are going. It's either up or down based on kind of your city, based on what's going on. If there's an event hopefully happening or something going on, you're busy. Or if you have that government business, you might be busy. Guys, comment and let us know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear where you're watching from. And I'm going to post some of these up on hey, good morning from Canada. Good morning from Puerto Rico, Omaha, South Florida. Welcome to the show, Mississippi. Guys, welcome to the show. Comment, hit the like button to let us know where you're watching from. Guys, today's episode is important for anybody, everybody that's in the travel industry, hospitality industry, because this affects you. This topic that we're going to talk about affects all of us, right? Learn what the future has in store for hotels, jobs, right? How this election that's coming up could affect all of us, right? And then find out what hoteliers need to know right now. And that's with Chip Rogers. I can't wait. Plus, we have Sarah coming on after Chip, and they're going to talk about what's happening in the industry, any news updates. There's some cool things that are happening and some important updates that Sarah's going to bring with the Hospitality Minute. Guys, this episode is brought to you by, and you know what? I forgot about putting the banner up, so I'm just going to say brought to you by smartguests.com. Guys, go. If you want to increase your guest service, guest satisfaction, improve your reviews, go to smartguests.com and hit the page, hit the bookmark page, and go back to it later after the show. And we have tools. Smart Guests has tools that can help you get increased reviews, increase your customer satisfaction, help with communication. There's over 50 tools. Hit smartguests.com. Somebody put that in the comments so that somebody can click on it very easily. Good morning from, Malaysia, UK, South Cali, guys, Nashville, Maryland, South Carolina. Man, there's people from all over. Hey, Kissimmee, right around the corner. Jacksonville, Orlando, Niagara Falls. Hey, welcome to the show, guys. Every week I bring up a mindset, and this week has been super difficult. I'm in a positive mood, like I'm always am. But this week, my mindset is everybody's going through something. We're all going through something. No matter if you don't post it on social media, you don't. Maybe you're leaving it within yourself and you're trying to deal with it, right? We're all going through something, and a lot of it's difficult. I'm going to share one thing that I'm going through that was very difficult this week. Is of course, my dad got COVID 6 weeks ago and has been on a ventilator for 40 days, right? And in the last few days, we found out, or actually the last week, we found out he's not going to make it. That's what the doctors are telling us. So we're hoping for a miracle. But 2 days ago, I had to sign the hardest contract that I've ever signed. And I've signed some deals, doing other things in the industry and outside of it. But this was probably the hardest thing I had to sign, was a do not resuscitate contract, right? With the hospital saying if something happens, he has a heart attack, please do not resuscitate him. Now, we've all had to go through something. And what's one thing that you've been through in your life that you can kind of share with us that can kind of help you just share your feelings, right? And I think that's important when we're talking about keeping it going, right? We're all going through something. So that's the mindset this week. And I just appreciate all your support. I mean, there's been thousands of people that have reached out to me. So I really appreciate everybody's message. In the beginning, I said, I don't want any calls. And I just send me a direct message or send me a text. And, and I appreciate all those messages and calls and all those direct messages, because I feel like sometimes you feel like you're the only person in the world dealing with this, but then you realize that everybody's going through something, because people have been sharing like, hey, I had to do a DNR for my family members, and we're all the same people. That's why I believe in. So thank you for the support. So I appreciate it. Now, at this time, we usually go with the Hospitality Minute with Sarah Dandashy, but she's going to come on after. I want to bring our featured guest on because we only have like 25 minutes, and I want to make sure we hit all the topics. Guys, thank you so much. Hit the like button and comment where you're watching from. And by the way, I'm giving away a $50 gift card to Amazon from smartguests.com, right? So hit us up and hit the comments and let us know where you're watching from. Guys, I want to bring him on right now. This is Chip Rogers. He is the CEO, the president of the American Hotel and Lodging Association. Chip, welcome to the show again. Thank you so much. You know, after the last show, you're like, I'm happy to come on every quarter and talk about what's going on in the industry. And it's very important. You've been in the White House in the last few months. You've talked to leaders that are that can make a big change. So welcome to the show again.
Hey, Rupesh. First, good to be with you. I understand your situation. We talked a little bit about it off camera. And you're right, everybody's going through something. Some, like yourself, going through things that are life-altering. Others are going through what you almost might characterize as annoyances. But all of us have to deal with something. And you're right, the positive attitude, no matter what you're going through, will make it better. It absolutely will make it better. And our industry is a perfect example of that. The way we interact with others, particularly guests in our industry, can change their life. I mean, you think about what you're going through, and you recognize there are so many other people across this country that are dealing with very similar things. And if you're in the hospitality industry and you just greet someone with a smile and you're nice and you're helpful, imagine how you could change someone's day who's going through something, Rupesh, like you're going through. Just the littlest things can make a difference.
Absolutely. And there's so many amazing hospital people, you know, healthcare workers that have to deal with this, share this outcome with the families, like my family, right?
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate what they're going through. But you know, in the hotel space, we're seeing a downturn right now as we go into our slow season in winter time, and for the majority of the United States. So you know, thanks for coming back on. And you know, it's affecting jobs, it's affecting a lot of different things. Now the election's coming up. Share what's going on in Washington right now and where we stand compared to where we were 2 months ago.
Well, I'm sitting in my office here in Washington. It's a very murky day today. The weather's been pretty nice lately, but today is one of those really soupy, like, you know, very humid days. Like it's almost like I'm in Florida, without the craziness that surrounds the U.S. Capitol. So as we sit here on what is it? Today's Wednesday morning, right? You have three things at play with respect to the next relief package and whether it gets through before the election. So you have the Speaker of the House, you have the White House, which is being represented by Secretary Mnuchin, and you have the Senate. Three different places, three different ideas. And I'll try to bring all this together as best I can. Months ago, the House Democrats, led by Speaker Pelosi, passed their HEROES Act, which was about $3 trillion in spending. The White House has stayed on the sidelines during that process, but did say there's no way they're going to agree to anything that large. The Senate introduced what's known as the HELP Act, which was I think it's a HELP Act. I can't remember the names anymore, but about $1 trillion. All right, so there was your goal, about $3 trillion on one side, $1 trillion on another. Then there's this group in the middle in the House called the Problem Solvers Caucus. Really interesting group. We generally very much support them. It's a group of Democrats and Republicans, one for one. Equal number of both. And when they introduced legislation amongst that group, they all agree that they're going to support it 100%, irrespective of what their parties are doing. They came out with a $1.5 trillion plan. So frankly, kind of in the middle, right? The president then said, all right, you know, we only wanted $1 trillion, but we're willing to do what the Problem Solvers Caucus is putting out at $1.5 trillion. So Mnuchin began negotiating with Pelosi. Those negotiations have been going on for weeks. If you recall, a week or so ago, the president came out. He got frustrated right after he came out of the hospital and said, we're not negotiating anymore. We're done. 6 hours later, he said, OK, let's negotiate again. So the White House is back and forth, and slowly but surely their number has crept up. And the last we heard, they're willing to spend about $1.8 trillion. Pelosi and the Democrats had come down to $2.2 trillion. So that was the gap. Now, in the last, say, 72 hours, the negotiations between the White House and Pelosi and her team have become pretty intricate. And so they're actually involving the chairs of the committees, because those are the folks who have to actually write the law. And so you feel like the White House and the House Democrats are actually going to get something agreed upon. But remember, I talked about what's happening in the Senate. Well, now Mitch McConnell is saying he doesn't have the votes in the Senate to get past anything close to $2 trillion because the Republicans on the Senate side said we're not going to vote for that much money. So that's kind of where we are. If you said, Chip, and I know that was a long explanation, but I wanted you to understand it. But if someone said, Chip, what are the percentages of this actually happening before the election? I would say it's less than 50%, probably less than a third, less than 33%. But there is still hope. If they can pass, if we can get an agreement between the White House and the House Democrats, it does put enormous pressure on Senator McConnell to do something. Now, he is trying to pass just PPP by itself, but the Democrats are not supporting that. They want a much larger package, and that's where the real problem is.
Yeah, and I know you've been connected, you're connected to thousands of hoteliers nationwide. What are people saying? What's the sentiment in the industry from the owner's perspective that you're hearing, that you're saying, you know what, I've written these things down, and I have a list of things that I want to kind of share that I've written down and friends have talked to me about. But what are they saying directly to you? Owners, operators, what are they saying to you that they need right now?
Resources. That's the bottom line. First and foremost, let's look at what will happen if nothing changes. We surveyed all of our members, and two incredible statistics came out of that. Very, very damaging numbers when you look at what could happen to the industry in the next 6 months. First, 75%, 3/4 of hoteliers said if they don't get any additional PPP funding, they're going to have to lay off more people. That's not good for anybody. More concerning to me and to all of us is that 2/3 of our members said, and keep in mind, we represent everybody from the largest brands and largest owners all the way down to individual owners of limited service hotels and everybody in between. 2/3 said they can't make it another 6 months without some sort of assistance. Yeah. That's the real scary part. And so we have been really championing that message everywhere we can, saying, look, if you as a lawmaker want to see thousands of hotels and the millions of jobs that go with them to just go away, then do nothing. But we think that it's that important that you need to do something. And so more resources through the PPP, a second round of PPP is incredibly helpful. And then the second big thing is gaining access to some sort of low interest loan that can help them make their payments. And Rupesh, I know you talk a lot about property taxes. We'll get into that in just a second. But whether it's a mortgage, whether it's a property tax, those things you have to pay to stay in business.
Yeah. And I hear from hundreds and thousands of people that have sent me messages these last 2 months saying, my hotel is planning on shutting down. Now, you see New York City as a perfect example where tourism's not happening. Nobody's traveling to New York for the most part, right? As just one example, here in Orlando, it's ticked up a little bit, but it's not what it was this time last year, right? And hoteliers are scared. I mean, they're running 5%, 10% occupancy during the week, and doesn't cover anything. And so we're asking for all these different things, and we feel like we're just lost right now. We feel like we're not being heard, is what I've heard from a lot of people. Is that what you're hearing too? Like it's just taking forever. Like, why can't we make it go faster? Like, other industries have received something, and why can't we get it, right?
Well, yeah, let me correct the record there a little bit. I mean, no other industry outside of the airline industry has received anything that you would consider specifically for an industry. Nobody else has received anything. It's been the PPP, which of course went to small businesses. Then you had Main Street Lending, which hasn't worked at all, but it was intended for medium and large businesses. But virtually no one has gotten anything out of Main Street Lending. And so the airlines did get a first round at about the same time everyone else got PPP. And they're asking for another round of funding. And of course, you saw the announcements of 30 to 40,000 airline employees being laid off. Right. Our industry is laying off far more than that, by the way. And we make that point to lawmakers all the time.
What's the number?
I'm sorry?
What's the number of layoffs so far in hotels?
So we've had about 2 million job losses so far. And some of those are temporary layoffs. Some of those are permanent layoffs. But 2 million people that aren't working, that were working back in February. If nothing happens, if there's no additional assistance, the projections from Oxford Economics are by sometime next year, another 1.7 million jobs will be lost. So you're looking at a total of about 3.7 million jobs lost in an industry that started 2020 with about 8.2 million jobs. And so you're looking at about 40% total reduction in the workforce, which is just unheard of.
Right. Yeah, it's so sad because I hear so many people send direct messages and they're just like desperate right now to find a job, and those jobs aren't out there right now. And every day they're like, "Can you find me a job? Can you help me find this?" And even recruiters are like, "Hey, we're open to anything," right? And so I feel like we're in a tough situation. How do we think past how do we think of like what's going to happen in the future? And then we'll get to all the other topics that we want to talk about. How do we say it's going to be better? Like, how do we continue telling ourselves it's going to be better? It's going to get better, and we're going to remain in this industry? Because people are like, hey, should I pivot for the temporary to at least help my family out? And I say, yes, don't stop. Don't just quit and just stay home, but keep yourself going. So what can you say? I know you shared a little bit last time. What can you say to people that need to keep going, hear that message from you as a leader, and know that there's going to be positivity at the end of the day?
Well, look, we don't want to sugarcoat it and give people false hope. But I'll give you the things that I'm seeing and hearing that I think, and just the general knowledge that we know, human nature, that makes a difference. First of all, people like to travel. They'll continue to travel. We were in an ascendancy in travel. If you think about the decade before this hit, right? So maybe 2010 to 2020, you heard a lot about that people in general want to do events. They want life experiences. They want to see, feel, and hear things they haven't heard before. And that's where travel helped, right? No question about it. International travel was at an all-time high, different cultures mixing, which is all a wonderful thing. And human nature led us to that. There was no like government program that said, hey, let's all travel. No, this is what people generally want to do. So we'll go back to that because that's what humans are made to do. So I know at some point we'll get back to that. But how long is that going to take, and can we survive that? Well, first of all, you have to look on in three fronts. I had got to take part in a really interesting Zoom call with a group of CEOs, and I just felt fortunate to be on the call. And it was with a gentleman that is leading the effort at Oxford University to create the vaccine. He's also the primary advice giver, so to speak, to the Prime Minister in the UK. And so this guy, his name's Sir John Bell. He knows his stuff inside and out. He said, look, first of all, there's about 8 legitimate vaccines out there that are being created. And he says, for sure, at least one of them is going to work, and probably many of them are going to work. And that's going to happen in the next few months. Like, we're right on the edge of that, because the signs are being shown that they already work in primates. And of course, the early tests of phase 3 are looking good. So we know that's happening. The second thing is we, as we've learned about this, the therapies are working in many cases. I mean, if you look at the death rate of those who catch coronavirus from back in March compared to now, it's dropped dramatically because we know how to deal with it, right? That doesn't mean, especially like the situation of your father, that everyone survives. It's still a killer. It's a major killer. There's no question about it. But the therapies are working. You even see the example of President Trump, who was in the hospital for a day or so. He's back out. Was it for football fans? Nick Saban apparently had it for a day or two. He's back on the sidelines. So we know the things that are working. But here's the key, which I think is, and this is what I guess you call him Sir Bell, mentioned to us. It's the testing that is so critical. He had just purchased a couple of weeks ago £1.5 billion worth of these rapid tests. And he was telling us there are about 4 tests out there that he believes will be under $5, and maybe by the end of the year, $2 or $3 per dosage, that can give you, with better than 99% accuracy, the results in less than 5 minutes. The reason that's critical is because that opens up everything, right? That opens up international travel. That opens up airline travel in a way that that people can get past the fear of being on a plane with somebody else, staying in a hotel, going to the theater, all sorts of things. Once you have those tests in place, so you combine the vaccines with the therapies, with the rapid, cheap testing, and then I think there's a lot of reason for hope.
Yeah, and that gives a lot of confidence when you know that everybody on this plane has been tested, and now I can feel safe to travel to that destination or to Disney right here, right around the corner from me, right?
But Rupesh, just one mention of that. I've been on a lot of airplanes lately. I've taken now 31 flights since March, and I will be on one today, this afternoon. And I don't know if you saw that statistic that came out just yesterday. It was released that said you're 50 times more likely to get struck by lightning than to contract the coronavirus on an airplane. And so there's a huge fear of flying right now. I've experienced it a lot. And I want to tell you, the airlines should be commended. They've done a wonderful job of making sure that the people are safe. And, I think just common sense tells us that if being on an airplane was dangerous, then the number one people that would be getting coronavirus right now are flight attendants. And that's not happening.
Right. Oh, interesting facts. Yeah. I've been on a couple planes this summer, and they've been the cleanest they've ever been, and I felt the safest I've ever felt. And I think that's going to continue going even way past this epidemic, right? And I think that same thing for hotels. We're going to be the cleanest we ever have been, and we're going to continue that because it's important. That's what people are really focused on now. And yeah, let's get into these topics because I think that a lot of owners are afraid that now their SBA extension that they had for 6 months is over. Now these banks and these funding companies are, dipping back into their savings, basically nothing they have, and they might be in a state of getting into foreclosure now. So what's going on with that extension for SBA?
So all across the lending landscape, things are tightening up and changing. As you mentioned, right out of the gate back in March, banks were looking at this and saying, look, this is a 6 to 8 week event. We can certainly carry you for that amount of time. We'll give you all sorts of flexibility. And traditional lenders were really good about that. On the CMBS side, they weren't really good about that. And we've talked about that ad nauseum. Yeah. But it's interesting to see because if you think about the process for CMBS, where if you don't make your payment, you go on delinquency, then receivership, and then foreclosure, that's because it's written into those agreements, right? And so traditional lending probably is going to follow that same path, just in many cases much delayed, because the economics are the exact same. If you don't make your payments, ultimately there's going to be a foreclosure. Right. And so when you look at those numbers and you look on the CMBS side, and you see back in July we were at 25% delinquency. That began to creep up even higher during August. Here we are in late October. You got to feel like that the foreclosure side through traditional lenders is only a few months behind that. And so if we think that anywhere between a quarter and a third of all hotels are already into the delinquency phase of not being able to pay, that probably, if we look out to the future, says we're going to have massive foreclosures by mid first quarter next year.
I absolutely agree. I hear from the owners like, my back's against the wall. We've sold everything that we've had, that we've saved for, and now we can't afford anything. We can't even afford our property taxes, which is the next thing I want to talk about. Is our bill is here. It's in our inbox, getting ready to be paid next month. And I think it's from November till March that it's due. And later you wait, the more penalty you get or interest you have to pay. What's on the front of kind of asking governments, local governments, to give us relief on our property taxes? And I understand property taxes are a big income, especially here in Florida, where there's thousands of hotels, and that's a big revenue driver for local cities and states.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind that is so critical as we begin to discuss the relationship between taxes and government and who can do what. Federal government obviously has no restriction on spending more than they bring in. This is why we have $27 trillion in debt. Yeah. So they have the flexibility to not collect taxes and at the same time continue to provide even additional services, tax relief, PPP loans, and things like that. Local governments do not have that flexibility. So every single state in America, you may be surprised to learn, has a balanced budget requirement. And so there's ways to slightly massage that, but nothing like the federal government. If you recall, many years ago, California was handing out IOUs. I think they got sued over that. But the bottom line is, even a place like California, they do have a balanced budget requirement. Now, you can spend money on, and I believe Florida is this way. I know the state of Georgia is this way. You can spend money on a capital structure and finance that. So if you wanted to build, another I-4 corridor or something like that, and you had to spend $1 trillion, you could put that out in what are known as bonds and essentially borrow that money. But for operational things, even at the local level, which is where property taxes are collected and spent, paying teachers, paying firemen, paying anybody and everybody that works for your local government there, they have to operate on a balanced budget. They can't actually spend more than they bring in. And so they have very little flexibility that they can offer to taxpayers to say, you don't have to pay your property taxes. What you'll often see, and Rupesh, you know this quite well, is that your assessment may actually go down because the property value went down, but then they'll raise the millage rate so that what you're paying in taxes oftentimes ends up being more, even if the value of your property went down.
Yeah.
And so that's going to continue. Now, one of the things that we've asked for on the federal level is for this next round of PPP to allow for folks to pay their property taxes and have that as a covered expense. So under PPP, the money that you get turns into a grant, not a loan, if you spend it on certain items. Currently, property taxes are not covered as one of those accepted items, one of those covered expenses. We're asking that it will be. Every single member of Congress I've talked to about this says, hey, you know what? That's a really good idea. So we'll see if it gets into the final legislation.
Yeah, I hope that happens, because I know so many hotel owners that are like, I'm not going to be able to pay my property taxes, let alone pay all these other expenses that come along with operating a hotel. And like you were saying, first quarter, you're going to see a lot of foreclosures happening if this doesn't improve at all, and we don't see any help from the government, actually. And I think there's going to be that where if it goes into foreclosure, does the property tax even get paid? And then what happens to local budgets, right? And I think that's where that ball starts rolling, especially in communities where there's a lot of hotels, like Orlando, like New York, like other cities where there's thousands or hundreds and hundreds of hotels, and they really rely on that revenue. Especially here in Florida, we rely on tourist taxes, right, as a big percentage of the local government's revenue, right?
Well, look, I mean, I was talking just yesterday with Congresswoman Shalala, who represents the Miami Beach area. Yeah. Think about her district that has the brand new Miami Convention Center and all the hotels that are focused on that convention center, and what it means to her. You live in Orlando. Orlando has been the worst city in the U.S. for occupancy rate outside of Honolulu. Honolulu's the worst for obvious reasons, but Orlando has been at the bottom since the pandemic began. And that is troubling. But then, interestingly enough, last week, I was in the Panhandle up in the Destin area. I was physically there for a meeting with Florida Restaurant Lodging Association. Great meeting, in person. Everything went wonderful. And those hotels are running 80-90% occupancy in some places. So you started the show by saying, depending on what type of hotel you have and where you are, really indicates what type of impact you're feeling right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel for those hotels that are in a city center that relied 100% on that business traveler that is not traveling, or that convention hotel like we were talking about. It's just heartbreaking to hear these people that are getting laid off and they don't know what holidays are going to look like for their family, right?
Right.
The next thing I wanted to talk about is, we talked about property taxes, extensions for SBA, and I know we only have 5 more minutes, so I want to get into the loans situation and then the business interruption situation that all hotels anywhere pay this business interruption policy.
Right.
And I know that I don't think you guys have too much influence at the governmental level or at your level, or do you?
Well, look, we prospectively, there's been a lot of discussion on how do you change business interruption insurance to cover something like a pandemic. Retrospectively, let's keep in mind, if we all wanted to start our careers over, maybe the best place to go is go to law school and become an insurance lawyer. These guys and ladies are very smart and they write some really interesting language that can be found in your policy. So the vast majority of policies, not all, but the vast majority of policies as written prior to the pandemic would not allow for business interruption insurance to kick in under the scenario of a pandemic. Moving forward, that might be the case. In fact, it might be required to be the case. You may have what's known as PREA. We already have TRIA, which is a federal law called terrorism risk insurance, right?
Yeah.
PREA would be pandemic risk insurance, where there's a policy that's backed up by the federal government that if we were to have another pandemic, the federal government would backstop this, and so that the resources would then flow through the insurance companies to those who have the insurance policies. But that's not the case right now, and hopefully that will be the case moving forward, because this probably won't be the last pandemic. But that's where there's all sorts of ideas about how we make sure we're in a better position if this ever happens again. But let me say one more thing on loans and what's happening here in Washington, D.C., because I think this is really important for people to know. You know, we're looking to an election which is 2 weeks away, 2 weeks away from yesterday. Millions and millions of people have already voted. What we're seeing right now is probably the worst case of politics, because you have a president who desperately wants something signed because he believes that's going to help him. A House who says, wait a minute, House Democrats who are saying, wait a minute, we look like we're winning here, so do we really want to do anything that gives the president a win? Senate Republicans who are saying, hey, I can't sign on to something that looks like trillions of dollars in spending because I might get primaried in 2022, 2 years from now. And it's just the worst amount of politics all coming together at once. And it's really, in many ways, just a shame that we find ourselves in this position, because everybody is at fault at some level. Now, the reality is that 13 days from now, the election is going to be over. So the immediate political pressure, that release valve will go off, and some of this pressure will go away. And so even if there's not a deal between now and election day, during what's known as the lame duck, that period between the election and when a new Congress and or a new administration is sworn in, there'll be an opportunity. And so we've already begun to lay the groundwork there. So not a day goes by where we're not speaking to multiple members of Congress saying, hey, we got to have help, got to have help. They all agree. It's just a matter of political timing, which come November the 4th, the day after the election, we'll be in a much better position.
Right. And I hope they pass something here soon, because it's going to help all of us. And, I've noticed that you've been building your network as far as the American Hotel Lodging Association, and you're now aligned with a lot of associations across the United States and international too. How can people help the American Hotel Lodging Association and your kind of network to continue this movement on supporting the industry, getting us back to a recovery mode instead of just trying to, figure out what's going on or be lost?
Well, put yourself in the shoes of a lawmaker, and this will be a little bit of a lengthy answer, and then I got to go. But I really appreciate, Rupesh, you giving me the time. But put yourself in the shoes of a lawmaker, especially at a time like this. Everybody's asking you for something. Everybody has a need. So many people are hurting. There's no question about it. Well outside of our industry, but so many people are hurting. So if you're the lawmaker and all these people are asking you for something, what you need to hear from them is, hey, here's exactly what we need, 3 bullet points, and we're not wavering on this. And our entire industry, whatever industry it might be, is centered on these 3 or 4 things, and that's it. We're not coming to you for 10 different things. We're not speaking out of both sides of our mouth. We don't have part of our industry wanting one thing, part of our industry wanting another. Because those industries that do that don't come together behind a unified, simple message, are the ones that get left behind, because lawmakers say, look, if you don't have your act together, I'm going to go help somebody else.
Sure.
And so we talk about that through our grassroots effort. It's called hotelsact.org. It's free. It takes you less than 5 minutes to sign up. And it's our ability to speak with one single message. So I'll leave you with this, and this is so important. About 3 weeks ago, we brought together this coalition called COVID Relief Now. We said, look, we got to expand what we're asking for and who's making that request beyond just the hospitality industry. And so we went out to every major, both public service and private sector association, and said, will you join us in this message of telling Congress not to leave town until they have a relief package? We ended up having 270 associations join, and that's everybody from the National Governors Association, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, to us, AHOA, the National Restaurant Association, International Franchise Association, just hundreds and hundreds of folks all coming together and speaking with one single voice. And that is what's so critical, and that's what gets lawmakers' attention. And so, join an association like ours, or join hotelsact.org. We keep you up to date on everything that's going on, and you can help us expand our voice. Because if I go to a lawmaker and say, hey, I got here's 1,000 letters from 1,000 different hoteliers, they're like, okay, that's nice. But if I go to a lawmaker and say, as we've done since the pandemic was started, here's 250,000 letters from over 55,000 folks in the hotel industry just in the last few months, that makes a much bigger difference, because it impacts every district in America.
Chip Rogers, it's always a pleasure having you on. Get you on next quarter to see what's going on, especially after this election. It's hotelact.org. Everybody right now, bookmark that, share that with your entire team, because the more people that support this cause, this movement, we're going to get somewhere, right?
Absolutely. Rupesh, you're the best. I wish your family, you and your family, are my thoughts and prayers, and we wish the best for you and everybody that's listening today, that we all get through this.
Absolutely. Stay well.
Thank you, my friend. We'll see you soon.
All right. Guys, please help and connect and make a difference in our industry, because it's a big way that you locally can help kind of push the movement forward, right? It's not just one person. It's not going to be Chip by himself. It's not these 250, 70 associate or organizations that are going to help. It's all of us local that are going to help kind of get this passed. So please bookmark the hotelsact.org and please help the movement. Please forward this on to other people. And guys, hit the like button. And by the way, before the end of the show, we are giving away a $50 gift card to Amazon. So thank you guys so much. I see all these people posting and commenting, and I'm reading those now. So I'll be sharing some of those here on the screen. Now, like we do every week, I have my buddy on, Sarah Dandashy. She's here with the Hospitality Minute. Sarah, what's going on? Unmute, 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 unmute.
There we go. I was hanging in the background, so I had to put it on mute. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Thanks so much again, Rupesh, for having me on. This was it was so incredible. I was sitting here in the back, watching and hearing everything that Chip was saying. And they're very sobering numbers, but it's so very important that we keep ourselves educated at this time. And it really shows you that we are in this point that there's this sort of stalemate until the election. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know where it's going, but we're staying positive, we're staying focused, and let's get right into your intro.
Hi, I'm Sarah Dandashy from Ask a Concierge. Every week, I'll be sharing the latest hospitality and travel news and updates in a segment we like to call Hospitality Minutes.
We see it, we know what's going on, we see the news, we see all the great stuff that's happening, because there's a lot of cool things happening right now in the industry. And so let's get right into the news and the update of what's happening in travel and hospitality.
Okay, cool. Well, perfect. Thanks again so much, Rupesh. So a lot of interesting things, kind of some of the main topics that we will be covering today. Some big things. The U.S. leads the world in hotel construction during the pandemic. Hilton is adding resort amenities to business hotels, and sustainability is definitely still important to hotels. So that's something we need to consider. And then we'll also talk about recent TSA numbers. So go ahead and dive into the first topic, which is the U.S. leads the world in hotel construction during the pandemic. Now, will it continue or will it slow? So just to kind of give you guys an idea, more than 55,000 new U.S. hotel rooms opened between the beginning of March and the end of September. So in the world, U.S. has definitely been leading in hotel construction. China saw the second highest number, which was followed then by Japan, Germany, Canada, and the U.K. Now, what's interesting about this is that people are like, well, wait, what's going on? We just heard from Chip what is going on. But a lot of this was because a lot of this construction was already in place. So it's kind of, they were following through sort of with that momentum. Now, what we are seeing, though, is that there have been now a lot of deferred projects. So although that did look good and it was great that we were able to continue that good momentum, now a lot of projects are being deferred. So through September, there were 211 U.S. hotel projects that were deferred, which is a 56% increase. So a lot more projects are being deferred. So it is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But it does also give us a bit of hope for when things do open back up, people are going to be ready. Moving on, Hilton adds resort amenities to business hotels after months of leisure-led travel. So for those of you that follow Hilton, and you definitely know that for the past decade, they've really focused a lot on business-oriented hotels. And I mean, that makes sense, from city center hotels, all of that. But in general, during this time, the hotel industry sentiment on the recovery has been centered around corporate travel, or basically the lack thereof. First, basically, we're seeing leisure travelers, then the independent business travelers, and then finally conventions and events. So what Hilton is doing is they're actually retrofitting some of their hotels aimed at single business travelers. So what does that mean? We're seeing that a lot of them are adding connecting rooms to accommodate more families, and also expanding their food and beverage outlets to handle more people rather than just business travelers. So that's something pretty interesting that we are seeing. Moving on, sustainability still important for hotels. So Wait, there we go. There we go. So interestingly enough, the Wall Street Journal just came out with their 100 most sustainably managed companies in the world. And of those 100 companies, only 2 were hotel chains. One is the Genting Group based out of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and the other one was Melia Hotels out of Spain. And it's interesting because certainly sustainability has been a big focus, but it definitely shows that we as hoteliers could do better. Just to give you an idea, they rated 5,500 publicly traded businesses. Melia was 7 on the list, and Genting was 14 on the list. But as industry as a whole, we could definitely do better. And then finally, what we are seeing, big news early this week, which coincides with the recent reporting by TSA, is that just on Sunday, TSA reported the highest number of passengers screened, which was 1 million passengers on a single day. That's the highest number since March 17th. And they also have screened in the past week 6 million passengers, which is also the highest volume since the start of the pandemic. Now, that being said, we are still about 60% less than what we were before. So, but it is showing us that we are on a positive upswing in regards to that. And of course, all eyes are on holiday travel and seeing how everything will play out. So that is it for today's Hospitality Minute.
Wow, I saw this. I saw the line, that graph for the millionth TSA, or when TSA shared that information, was it yesterday, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is actually pretty cool to see that people were given, the businesses and people are feeling comfortable about traveling. And even I hear at some of the parks here in Orlando that they're slowly getting to it, even though they laid off 28,000 employees a couple weeks ago. But I feel like the parks are slowly picking up. We don't know until it actually until they actually stay and then go
and
home.
it's like, what's a trend? What's a fluke? We're still trying to see like what's here to stay. But it is interesting though that since these numbers are up, and what are we talking about? We're talking about the middle of October. So it's not like we're talking about numbers are up and it's a specific holiday. So I mean, that is, again, whether it's here to stay, it definitely is showing that people are ready to get back out there.
Yeah, they were saying in May, June, like, oh, you know what? We're going to push all our events till now.
Yeah.
Right now. Remember that? They were like in April, like, oh, don't worry about it. We're not canceling. We're just moving our events till October. Now, I would like to hear from you guys listening, has that actually happened? So the groups that you had, some of the events that you had, did they actually move to October, November, December? And then we're thinking about holidays. Are people going to have holiday parties, or is it going to be virtual? Sarah, what do you think?
Oh, so holidays, I think, are really going to be tricky. I think a lot of it will just have to do, honestly, with our cases here in the United States. As I always say, is like, look to see how other areas are doing right now. I mean, the reality is like Europe is definitely, they're in a full-fledged second wave.
Yeah.
We arguably never really got out of our first wave. So I am curious to see how things will go over the holidays. And obviously, as Chip was saying, a lot of that will be really centered around, a vaccine and other, protocols and things that we're able to do for people. So I think it's still a toss-up. I think what we'll definitely see is last-minute things. Everybody will be making last-minute decisions, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I think so too. And Halloween's around the corner, 2 weeks away, and I don't think, for the most part, Halloween's actually going to happen in many cities. And I think a lot of cities have actually canceled some of their other local festivities that they had, including Harvest Fests and all these other things. What do you think? What's happening in your area in California?
Well, I am right in the center of things. In Los Angeles, and normally they do this massive Halloween parade right there in West Hollywood. And we're talking about millions of people attend this. And that's definitely not happening this year, but it's going to be really interesting because also Halloween is on a Saturday. So if we're looking at that and we know how people really like to celebrate, I think that it's going to be really interesting in larger cities, because maybe the city will be like, no, we're shutting this down. We're not doing this. But I'm curious to see how many people are just going to say, I don't care what you say, and we're going to go out. So that's going to be very curious to see.
Wow. And then also Thanksgiving is a month away too. So like, you're like, man, do I go see family members? Do I host an event at my house? Do you do anything? And what are you guys doing as far as viewers? Are you guys actually going to host an event or go to a family member's house or even go out during that holiday weekend? Because, Black Friday is a huge shopping weekend. And as retail continues to get hurt because of the pandemic, we're closing every single week, right?
Yeah.
What happened to the Black Friday weekend where you have a group of people getting together, families getting together for Thanksgiving, and then you have this big line and this craziness for Black Friday when people want to save money. And I understand both of them, right?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, Rupesh, because another, and I had shared this yesterday on one of my videos, but Hopper, so the app Hopper, they had done a study, and they found that numbers are up as far as people are opting to travel for the holidays in November as well as December. And of those people that will be traveling, a lot of them, this will be the first time that they've traveled the entire time since the start of the pandemic. And of those people, majority of them are going to be opting to fly. So, again, as we've talked about how the airline industry has really, done a very great job in relaying the fact that people should feel comfortable when they fly. I know that you feel comfortable. I definitely have felt comfortable as well. So we are seeing that trend is that, people are like, hey, we're going to fly and we're going to do it and visit our family.
Yeah. Well, Chip Rogers flew 31 times or 30 times this summer. He's meeting tons of people in different meetings. And if he can stay safe, we can too, as long as we practice our social distancing, all the rules, and if you're sick, stay home. That's like my thing. If you're sick, stay home, but follow all the other rules, right? And don't live in fear. That's kind of like my thing, right? We can't just sit here at home living in fear, but make sure that you are taking the right steps to stay safe. And Sarah, it's always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for being so flexible today, where we had a limited time with Chip Rogers. And let's do it again next week.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, where can people find you?
Oh, okay, cool. You guys can find me online on all social media platforms at Ask a Concierge, or you can also go to my website, askaconcierge.tv.
Awesome. Guys, connect with her on Instagram. She has a huge following on Instagram. Hit the subscribe alert on her YouTube channel. And she posts a video a couple times a week, right?
Twice a week, two new videos.
Twice a week, and hit that alert button so you get that notification. And then, follow her here on LinkedIn. And Sarah, it's always a pleasure. Let's pick a winner before you leave.
Oh, okay.
Have you been reading the comments?
I have been reading the comments.
The person that I feel like has been really active, and guys, all of you guys are winners in our eyes, is Peggy Godfrey. Peggy, thanks so much. Every week she comes on, and often she comes on and shares great information, and she's very engaged. So congratulations, Peggy. Please contact me directly, and I'll send you that Amazon gift card via your email, so you'll get it like within minutes, right? Congratulations, everybody. Please congratulate Peggy for winning. And Sarah, we'll see you on next week. Next week's show is going to be awesome, I think. And it's a lot of tips on continuing to improve ourselves, our hotels, and keep us going.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm looking forward to it. As always, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. See you later. Guys, thank you so much for this opportunity for us to share. And Chip Rogers is a great ally of all of ours, helping us improve our industry, get us moving forward. And guys, stay well, be safe, take care of each other. I'll see you next week. Bye.